I'm very happy to ask to Ray Gallen, who is already here. You can switch your computer on that plug there. Yes, this one. So we have a long experience with Ray, because Ray has been teaching some of you probably here in Paris Diderot. Then he's very, very busy, so it's a great honor to have him now with us. You standing?
Yes.
Okay. And he will talk about a really interesting subject. Content is software, is content.
Thanks. I'm just talking here while I'm setting up. One of the things that I'm very pleased to follow Fanny Bischoff in this presentation, because she's speaking to something that leads right into what I'm speaking about. The whole question of collaboration and the whole question of being able to manage things collectively is going to become not an option, it's going to become absolutely necessary. And that's part of what I'm going to be explaining in just a moment, as soon as I get my little clicker connected here. So we'll just take a second. Am I connected? If I'm not connected, then I'll just do it from here.
No, I can do it for you if you want.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Techniques.
Yes, you know the expression, it worked this morning. Well, okay, I'll just do it from here. No problem. Non, ça c'est ça. C'est ça qui... Oui, mais... Maintenant, oui. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something a little bit on a different level from what most of the rest of the presentations have been, because I'm talking about something that is happening. It's happening right now in the world of technology, and it's happening in a way that affects all of us and is going to change our jobs, our careers, and our lives very, very rapidly. How many people here know this term, Industry 4.0? Industry 4.0. Have you heard that? Yeah, it's a term that was invented by the German government, mostly in an attempt to standardize it according to their notions, to suit German industry. But the term has caught on, and it's moving around the world now, and basically refers to the marriage of certain technologies like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and certain delivery methods like augmented and virtual reality and so on. And all of this is going to have a very, very profound effect on how we live and work. But I'm going to start out with something a little bit more mundane, which is a restaurant, and ask you, what if a restaurant advertised itself like this? The fact is, people who go to restaurants don't go to have edible food. They want something really special. And when people buy our products, they also don't want something that's just usable, which is the word that we throw out all the time, right? What they want is a really great experience. And this is where we come up with terms like user experience, customer journey, and so on. But when we talk about user experience, what are we talking about? One of the things we're talking about is individual competency learning, right? I mean, if we are trying to help people learn how to use a product, we want them to learn. And in fact, John Carroll, who is the father of minimalism, says that he doesn't like the term user, he much prefers learner. And I buy into that as well. So when we talk about the user journey, we're talking about learning that has to be designed in stages, and these stages have to be related to state vector changes. Now, what I mean by that when I talk about state vector changes is states of context, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. It also means that the progress of learning is not determined by we technical communicators. We don't determine how fast somebody learns. The learner does. And it means that everybody in the organization, and I really mean everybody, including the people who sweep the floor, are 100% responsible for the end-to-end customer journey. And that also includes customers. One of the things that we don't do very well at this point, and we're going to be doing more and more as we get more and more software as a service, is getting feedback from the customers to go right back into the design of the product directly. Sometimes we do it through a whole bunch of filters and intermediaries. We have a whole bunch of people who call themselves product managers who are always telling us they know what their customers want. Some of them have never talked to one, but that's another question. And this journey that we're talking about is not at all a linear journey. That's another important thing to think about. For example, this is a scheme or a chart that intends to present certain learning progress. So here you have a set of staged ideas that you theoretically go through in a linear fashion, and you have another subject and you do the same thing. But in fact, we don't really learn like that, do we? In fact, people are much more associative, and people retain what they like. They learn best what they like doing. So what we really need to do is look at a learning process that's like this. It's all jagged. It's not consistent. It's not coherent. And there are gaps in it. Now, this is what requires a different information environment. And that information environment, suited for Industry 4.0, a number of us that have been following this through and working on this for at least the last year, are calling Information 4.0. And here's an example of an application that you can download on your cell phone right now that does some of this, only some of it. It's called Blipar, and you can enter a search term, or you can, not enter a search term, you can show it an object, and it does visual recognition, and it will give you an ontology. Whoops. See, it's working now. It will give you an ontology. And then you can go from that ontology to another ontology. Now, I don't have the time to explain all of this really in detail, but what you see here is you see two things that are very interesting. One is an offer of information. So with each one of these ontologies, you get to pick what you're interested in and drill down farther. And that will take you on another path and another path. So this is a hyper-realization of hypertext. And the other thing about it is that what this application does is it goes out to the web and gets the latest version of whatever's out there. So if between today and tomorrow the Wikipedia article on finger has been updated, tomorrow I'll get the new article. I don't have to wait for release 2 of Blipar to come out. I will get it instantly. The problem with this, from my point of view, is that it's an unguided journey. It's a journey this remains something of a game or a toy as long as its primary objective, and it's what the designers have done, is visual recognition. But if we look at an idea of fluid information that is a guided journey, which is more where most of us work, I think, then we can start to identify certain characteristics of what we mean by this Information 4.0. For one thing, it's molecular. So it means there's no documents anymore. There's just bits of information, information molecules. Again, I'll get more into detail about that in a moment. The other thing is it's dynamic. It's continuously updated. And it's not delivered It's offered. We give you an offer of information, and the user, the learner, gets to pick what he or she needs. It's ubiquitous, which means you can find it anywhere. It's online, it's searchable, and not only searchable, it's findable. You can actually get to it. It's spontaneous. It's triggered by contexts. And this is going to become extremely important moving forward, the whole notion of context sensing. And it's also built around automatic profiles. And I'll get into more details about some of these things in a moment. Let's start with context. The notion that we have a context state, which is a snapshot of where you are now. Now, you know, we all use our mobile telephones, and we all call them telephones. But actually, we don't do a whole lot of talking on them, do we? They're really mobile terminals, right? And we're about to have another big paradigm shift because those mobile terminals are about to become mobile sensing stations. They already know all of these things, and very shortly, they're going to know all of these things. Now, if you look at these words here, you might say, well, they already know some of that stuff, but they know it because we tell them. We tell them about it. What's going to happen is they're going to know about it without our telling them. They're going to know about it by themselves. And they're going to know things about us like how we learn. And they'll be able to feed us information. If that information is properly tagged and properly constructed, that will be suited to the way that we learn. If I'm a visual learner, you're an auditory learner, it'll give you sound, it'll give me images to learn the same thing. Think about how that's affecting what you do. So we're going to have context state tags, in fact. We're going to be tagging kinds of metadata that we aren't even thinking about yet. But it's around the corner. This stuff is in development right now. For example, there's a company called Affectiva that has produced an emotion API. It has its own SDK. You can get it right now. You can go online and get it. They claim to have analyzed number of faces in more than 75 countries. I did a research project at the TCUK conference this year, our company did, together with the Adobe technical communication folks, in which we found that one of the major demands from seasoned technical communicators was the power to read minds. They want to know what emotional state are my users in so that I can feed them information that's either in the, if you're frustrated because this friggin' thing isn't working, then maybe I want to give you calming language. Say, relax, we're going to fix it for you. You know, this sounds funny, but it's not. It's very serious. It's going to happen. And artificial intelligence is going to be the engine that drives it. Now, I just discovered last night that in January, a researcher in the United States, Violetta Tulciano, released a study about a brainwave authentication system. And you can see what it does there in the text. Some people think that some political leaders need to have something like that. But this is stuff, this is current. This is absolutely happening today. Now, we all use personas, I think, but when we have artificial intelligence designing personas, instead of having maybe 3, 5, a dozen personas for a product, we can have thousands. Think about what that means. That means that each user, or almost every single user, can have an individual profile that will do all of these things. And that can happen because we have systems like IBM Watson or Google DeepMind, which today are being run in service mode. That means that you or I or anyone can actually go out and pay a relatively modest fee to have access to to supercomputers. You no longer need a supercomputer in your basement to do this. So, with all of this in mind, when we come back to the notion of product, I'm thinking here primarily of software, but let's be honest, today hardware is also software. So almost any product is a virtual product of some sort. We have all these different components that you see here arranged that we're all familiar with because we're content people. We have to think of content as part of software. It's a software object. It's integrated, or it should be, integrated into the build of that software, just as any other feature is, with its own intrinsic behavior, its own way of functioning. And that includes these things, right? So error handling as a procedure and troubleshooting as an actual software interaction, perhaps driven by artificial intelligence. So when we talk about what is the product, we are no longer outside the product. We're no longer at the end of the food chain chasing engineers around, writing what they said they did, which may not be what they really did. We are, in fact, part of the product design because the product is all of these things combined and unified. And the fact is, we're not in a situation of breaking down silos. We're in a situation where the silos just plain don't exist. And if they do exist, then we're not making good products for this era. And it's really that simple. So, information 4.0 is information that has to have a nimble structure. And that means it's not the kind of technical documentation that we've been doing, that most of us have been doing for most of our careers, and that you may even still be learning in this school and many others, not because the schools are behind, but because things are changing so fast that it's absolutely impossible to know exactly what it is that we need. In fact, the one thing that we know about the future is that it's going to be different. Right? That's the only thing we really know. So, I mentioned information molecules. What does that mean? It means very fine-grained bits of information, smaller than a data topic, right? It means that they're continuously updated and that there are multiple versions for different voice and tone, for different contexts, for different levels of user knowledge and experience. And the question then arises also, what is the smallest group of molecules that holds together in a given context? Because if you take one of these molecules out of context, it might suddenly be giving information that would be dangerous, life-threatening, or incomplete. So somehow there has to be an engine that determines, okay, we've atomized this. How do we make sense out of it? How do we keep it together in a way that works? How do we keep it together in a way that, we're not going to be killing people in robot surgery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These things are critical issues, and you may hear me asking a lot of questions here. I don't have the answers to all these questions. Nobody has them. But we've got to start working on them. And following along with some of the conversation earlier this morning, people like we content specialists, we're the ones who should be working along with others on answering these questions. Otherwise, the humanist side, the ethical side, and the other considerations are not going to be there. There's also the whole question of onboarding. How do we get people started on this stuff? It's not just having a getting started guide or some sort of little video tutorial. This has to be done via a dialogue with developers. It has to be built into the product, how we get people on board. And of course, there has to be a way to shut it off, or for the software or the product to decide, okay, you're smart enough now, you don't need this. And it shuts it off by itself, unless you say keep it on. Right? So we have to be working with developers to design these things. How do we get people on board? Because the products are becoming more and more complex. And I don't care how good a developer you are, how good a designer you are, how much you apply design thinking and all the rest of it. No matter how simple we make these things, some of them are still going to be very, very complex because that's their nature. So the question is not how do we simplify beyond the limit, but how do we deal with complexity so that people can access it quickly and easily. So again, this question of how do we get the information? Do we publish it? Do we deliver it? Do we offer it? I've obviously said I think we're going to offer it and people will choose it. But there's also a question of how are the robots going to do it? And for us, the question is, what should we be doing? Because we are going to take our part in communities with robots, with machines. We're going to be in human-machine communities. So how can we help the artificial intelligence do it right? And that comes down to questions of ethical and social consequence. We all know the whom do you kill conundrum for driverless cars. But people who actually think about this say the real question is not to program whom do you kill. You know, it's not the question of do you hit the group of pedestrians or save the life of the driver? Which do you, and save the life of the driver or do you kill the driver? You know, and of course, obviously, insurance companies are going to want to have something to say about that. Are they going to do an instant actuarial calculation to decide, well, these are all young people and this guy's 75 years old, so we can sacrifice him, you know. How is all this going to be done? Well, the people that are really doing the research say this is actually not the question, because the way that humans actually function in a situation like this is they just try to avoid killing anyone or anything, right? And sometimes it doesn't work. That's probably what we're going to end up having the machines do as well. And in fact, other people are saying that there are a lot more mundane ethical situations, like do you run a red light in a certain situation because it's safer than trying to stop on a dime? Or you know, those kinds of situations are much more likely to be the kinds of ethical conundrums that you're actually going to be cracking your heads trying to program. So the question is, again, who writes the algorithms, and what do you tell the owner of a driverless car about it? What is user information for the owner of a driverless car in this context? Big questions, right? Big unanswered questions that really speak to the question of responsibility. Here's another one, impact on jobs. Eastman Kodak Company, which went down very, very badly because they didn't see the digital revolution coming, used to employ 145,300 people. Today, Facebook and Instagram combined, who perform many of the same functions that Kodak used to perform, have 10,000 people around the world. You don't need to be a great mathematician to see the problem, right? Now, a lot of people say, and it's absolutely true, new technologies take away jobs, they also create new ones. And that's all very well and good, but in the United States, more people are employed driving trucks than in any other job. So the question is, how many truck drivers are going to become data scientists or preschool teachers because the trucks are driving them themselves now? How many of them are prepared to make that great leap? I'm not even saying whether they're qualified or competent. Probably most of them are, if they really want to. But how many of them are prepared to do it? What have we done in education to give people the flexibility to make that leap? And since a lot of us here are educators, That's a challenge I throw out to all of us, myself included. And so, what kind of information do we need to give to reclassified workers who might not be comfortable moving into this digital environment? And frankly, I think that a lot of the conflict that we're seeing in political situations right now about the way the economy is going, when people in Europe talk about globalization as the enemy and you know, the destroyer of jobs and so on, and all of what's happening in an analog fashion in the United States right now, a lot of it's because of this. Because people are terrified, because they see their jobs disappearing, traditional industries and so on, and they don't know what they're going to do to feed their families. That's a very real concern. That's not something we can laugh at. It's not something we can put away by saying, oh, there's lots of new jobs for programmers and so on. Not everybody is going to be a programmer. So what this means is everybody has black holes of knowledge. Whether we're technologists, truck drivers, teachers, we all have black holes of knowledge. And part of our job as information specialists is to fill those black holes, but we don't know each person's black hole. I don't know yours, you don't know mine. So we can only find ways to offer the material that they need to fill their own. And for that, we absolutely need to stay zen, composed, and reflective about all of this, because we are really on the face of a huge revolution, and we are probably also very much a part of it. And so that's the thought I want to leave you with, and thanks very much.